prevention services. So a lot of what I do is speak with students both individually and in groups. I also go into the classrooms. I do a lot of work with the freshmen and their freshman experience classes. I go into some of the health classes in the 10th grade. And then I run some junior and senior groups just so that I kind of feel like I'm reaching everybody or as many students as I possibly can. And really just having conversations about what may put students at risk of drug and alcohol use, ways to cope with some of their feelings that don't include turning to drug and alcohol use. And so I hope that you find me as a resource that both parents and students can use. And that's kind of the thinking behind me doing this presentation tonight, is that I love working with your students, but I also want to make sure that I'm a resource for you as well. So I'm going to get started. Tonight's topic is teen vaping, nicotine, and marijuana use. And I will be giving you guys basically the most important updates on kind of the trends that we're seeing with teenagers today. Okay, so what I am going to do is just share my screen and pull up the presentation. Just bear with me for a moment. Okay. Okay. Can somebody just confirm that you can see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So here we go. All right, so to start, I always just like to do this with parents because I think that this really speaks to what kind of the drug and vaping scene looks like with teenagers today, very different than it's looked in the past. And so can you spot the 3 vape products? 3 out of these 6 are totally kind of regular everyday items, harmless, and 3 are directly related to vaping. So could you, if you want to just go right into the chat box and maybe Ms. Brand can kind of look at that for me. And if you just have any guesses that you want to throw out there, if you just want to say what you think might be related to vaping in any way, and totally open for guesses, no shame in getting it wrong. These are meant to be hard. These are meant to be tricky. Just curious if you guys have any ideas. Otherwise, I'll just share.
Somebody wrote down the flash drive.
Okay, so that is you. So I purposely put that one to be tricky. That actually is just a picture of a flash of some flash drives. But we know that the Juul device, which is one of the most popular or was one of the most popular vaping devices, looks very, very similar to a flash drive. So those are actually just harmless flash drives. But if I put a picture of a Juul up right next to it, it would look pretty close. So it's just something to be aware of. Any other guesses?
None have come up so far.
Okay, so it's actually that the top 3 items are just kind of regular everyday items. So those really are just flash drives. And then in the middle, that is just an ice cream eraser. And then the other one is just a box of sprinkles, a container of sprinkles. The bottom 3 all look like food related items. But if you look really closely, they have some type of a, either they have their like company name on it, like the slushie. If you look really closely, it says Vaporfy right on it, but very small. The fire bottle of sriracha says 3 mgs. So that's referring to how much, nicotine or content is in there or how much that bottle holds. And then the Nilla wafers, again, not exactly Nilla wafers, but vanilla, but really looking exactly like the boxes that we know in stores of regular cookies. These are all e-liquids. So I'm going to explain in a minute what that means, but they're all liquids that, people would buy and fill their vapes with or their cartridges with. So not sure who really wants to smoke sriracha flavored vape, but that is what our students are seeing. And so I always ask myself, and I ask students, because I'll show them this too when I'm presenting, is this an accident? Is this an accident that these products look so similar to everyday products, or really to things that kind of our children would be attracted to? And so, are they really targeting youth? And I think the clear answer is absolutely. Okay, so just what are vapes? Vapes are just referring to anything that's an electric cigarette. You may hear vape pen, Juul, ends, carts, many names for these devices, but they were all originally developed as a safer alternative to smoking. And this is what I will hear students say time and time again is, Miss Donahue, I heard it's safer. And so, how bad could it really be? And I have to explain to them that even if they were originally developed for that reason, no research has shown that they've actually been successful at helping people quit. If anything, it's shown the opposite, where adults who are trying to quit end up being addicted to both. So they feel like they just picked up vaping as another habit. So no good research showing that that has actually helped. And I also explained to them different when we're talking about teenagers, right? Different when we're talking about students who are probably not addicted to anything, getting their brains primed with nicotine from such an early age was not or should not have been the intent of creating these products. So you'll see that there's a variety of different products on the market. They can look so many different ways, not to get confused again, or I mean, that's a little bit easier said than done. It can get confusing, but they all work essentially the same way. There's a mouthpiece, there's a battery. They usually come with a charger unless they're disposable. If you just make note of kind of these ones right down on the bottom row in the middle, they say puff bars. Those are disposable, they're new, and they are definitely a loophole to students being able to still vape flavors. The Juul used to be the most common and most popular vape device. When they hit the market, they just took off with both youth and adults alike. But they went through some flavor bans recently in the recent years, and they've been successful at trying to take away some of the flavors that Juul is able to offer. And so Juul saw a significant decrease in the amount of students buying their product and the amount of people in general, but especially our youth, because they like the flavors. Makes sense. So these disposable vapes get around that law somehow. So somehow it's that it's banning flavors on closed pod devices, which the Juul is, the pre-filled liquids, but disposable vapes somehow get around that. And so these puff bars have all the flavors that Juul had plus more, and we're seeing a lot of them. Same with the Stig, disposable. They can just buy it. There's pre-liquid with nicotine in it. When they're done vaping from it, they toss it. Others, like the larger ones on the upper right-hand corner of your screen, those have like tanks or cartridges. Those you don't throw out after using. You buy them for more money, and then when you're done with whatever you put inside, you buy more. Back to that slide of the three objects, those were all e-liquids or e-juices for the vape devices. That would be something that you would put into a device that looks like that. So a lot that exists out there, a lot of loopholes that people are still finding to get these. The age is 21 though, and I'm always clear with students. It's 21 to have them, to be using them. And so anybody, younger than that in terms of are they allowed to have them, the answer is no. Okay, so who is vaping what? I find this really interesting, and I always want to share the most up-to-date information that I have, the most up-to-date research with parents. This is from Monitoring the Future 2020. So this is the most recent updated information that we have. And Monitoring the Future is a national survey of youth regarding their drug and alcohol trends. And so, like I said, this is national data. This is not Sleepy Hollow. This is not even just Westchester or New York. This is a national kind of snapshot. But just to show you that from 8th grade to 12th grade, we're really seeing an increase in vaping, whether it be just flavoring, nicotine, marijuana, from 8th grade to 12th grade, definitely an increase, and needing to really educate our students from an early age about the risks and the potential dangers of this. When I look at this too, I always think of the seniors who I do, like I said, I run some senior groups with. And it was an interesting statistic from 2018 to 19, the difference between the seniors. They asked them why they vape. And the number of seniors that said because we are addicted more than doubled. It went from 3.6% to 8.1% of seniors saying, I vape because I am addicted, not because I just want to be cool, I want to fit in, I like to do it with my friends. Those are more common answers among our 8th graders and our 10th graders even. But once we know youth have been vaping over a long amount of time and consistently, we know that they are reporting being addicted. And that's really important to understand. The largest increase in any substance ever recorded by Monitoring the Future in 45 years is this increase that we've seen in vaping from 2017 to 2020. It is unprecedented, the amount of teenagers that we're seeing experimenting with these vaping devices, and then some of them, not all, going on to really have an addiction to them. Just briefly, vaping and COVID, I thought, how could I really do a presentation without at least just, hitting on that there are correlations between vaping and COVID. Number one, just a compromised immune system. So just the fact that if you are vaping, you have compromised lungs, and that will in turn give you a compromised immune system. And we know that students who vape actually have a harder time bouncing back from illnesses and healing compared to their peers who don't vape, which I always find interesting as well. Number two, they're just more susceptible to getting COVID. And doctors say that the increased chance for people who vape is probably due to hand to mouth contact and the fact that it gets passed mouth to mouth, especially with our youth. So sharing devices being very common among young people, and again, putting them at an increased risk of COVID. So I always share this with students, especially this year when I'm presenting, that it's never a good time to be vaping anything and to be, compromising their lungs, but especially not during a global pandemic. Just so that, we even touch upon the impact of COVID-19, as I'm sure you are all aware, just that it has meant increased stress for our students, uncertainty, family changes, employment changes, then coming back to school and the anxiety surrounding that. And so that did mean an increase in use of alcohol and substances and an increase in mental health issues. And just a point with this, when it comes to during COVID, we saw an increase in students who were already using. We saw a dramatic increase in the amount that they were using. But we did not see, which is a good thing, we did not see such a significant increase in terms of new users. Because if they hadn't tried vaping or alcohol or marijuana before the pandemic, they were reporting that they were not trying it for the first time when they were on lockdown with their family, not with peers. So that kind of makes some sense. But among our students who are already using, it was a very difficult time where we didn't have as much one-on-one contact with them. We were still trying to connect with them virtually, but we knew that some of our students were at home really struggling with their substance use and their mental health. Okay, and so really one of the most important things, I think, in terms of trying to have students understand what the issue is with vaping is the level of nicotine that they are really ingesting. Nicotine is a stimulant. It is highly addictive. It is actually the most addictive substance to quit once you are addicted to it. So again, having students understand, we can be talking about alcohol, we could be talking about heroin. Neither of those are more difficult to get off of than nicotine. I ask them to consider parents or family members or anybody that they may know who have been addicted to cigarettes and how hard that has been for some of their family members to ever quit. And a lot of them can kind of, relate to that. And so we do not want to be introducing this into our young people, having them become primed for addiction. Having, that pleasure in their brain get set off from such an early age really disrupts the development of their brain. It disrupts executive functioning, which they need for working memory. They need it for thinking. They need it for self-control. So if it disrupts these things, you could imagine what that means, the implications that has both at school and at home. And so just to be aware, the high doses that some of these vapes have, even higher than cigarettes. We've actually heard about seizures being caused from some of these high levels of nicotine. Okay, so I'm just going to switch gears a little bit, but when we're talking about marijuana use, it goes right along with vaping. So it's like there's the flavoring, there's the nicotine in some of these devices, but then we also have students vaping marijuana. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we're seeing with that and why that is concerning as well. So national data shows that 11.4% of eighth graders, 28% of 10th graders, and 35.2% of 12th graders have used marijuana in the past year. And what marijuana does is it has receptors that go directly to areas of the brain that we need for learning and memory, motivation, and mood. So again, this should make some sense. If you know any, teenagers or young people that may use, if you've heard of anybody struggling with this before, it usually makes sense that these are students that might be experiencing very low motivation to go to school, very low motivation to get their schoolwork done, um, having trouble actually learning, remembering the information that their teachers are teaching them, really, having a hard time recalling the information that they need to be successful students. And that is what marijuana does. It goes directly to those areas of the brain and it impairs those areas of the brain. So again, important to know. I think sometimes the conversations are my lungs, smoking. I know you don't want my lungs to be harmed. When I start talking about the brain and how much it's impairing the developing brain, they usually students kind of have more of a sense of wanting to talk about that and really and how much would I have to be smoking, and over time can I reverse some of that damage. It's really important to be talking about the brain when we're talking about marijuana use and teenagers. Their brains are still developing through their late 20s. So I also explained that introducing marijuana at such a young age really hijacks what the brain thinks is important. Food, water, sleep. If you start to smoke marijuana at 13, 14, 15 years old, when your brain's still developing, your brain will get the message that marijuana is what you need, that it is actually on that hierarchy of needs, sometimes more so than eating and drinking water and getting sleep. That's what it could become, for those who are addicted to it. Okay, so this is just a slide, a quick slide to show you what our teens are seeing, what they're being flooded with in terms of the images. When it comes to social media, they talk to me about this all the time, and I know that it's true. They're signing on to social media and they are seeing a lot of messages that make it seem like this is very acceptable. Not only is it acceptable, it's fun, and celebrities are doing it. And celebrities are investing their money in it. And so this is a very confusing message for students. The good news is that there have started to be on TikTok and other social media platforms some anti-vaping ads. You've probably even seen through like the Truth Initiative on TV. There's been a push for that, but I'm hearing from students even on social media, they are seeing that there's anti-vaping ads being pushed. But seeing your favorite celebrity invest money in a vape brand really sends the message home that this is acceptable. So Bruno Mars is just one of the examples. He invested in Enjoy Vape Company. So you could see what he's, using right there in that picture with the sunglasses. That is Bruno Mars. And he has invested, like I said, in his own line of vape pens. The Weeknd up in the left-hand corner, he is another singer, kind of rapper, very big with teenagers right now. He teamed up with Pax Labs. Pax is another type of vaping device, for fancy smoking, quote unquote, fancy smoking, just a special edition vape that he basically put his name on. And that edition goes for over $300. The two other people seen here are TikTok stars. The girl, Charlie, has more than 125 million followers on TikTok, and Bryce Hall has over 21 million followers on TikTok. And again, just being shown vaping, that this is cool, blowing the smoke out of their mouths. And so there has to be a sense of understanding too, that our young people think this is cool, this is acceptable, this is something that will make me popular or in or relevant right now. And so this is kind of what we're up against when we're having these conversations with teens. So again, similar to the vaping devices are these weed pens, and that's honestly just what they're referred to. Weed pens, carts refers to the cartridge that you need to fill. And basically you can buy often online cartridges that are pre-filled with THC. THC is the active chemical in marijuana that gets you high. So most students and adults alike figure the higher the THC, the better the high will be. But we have quickly learned that that is not true. And we've never seen such high levels of THC in some of these devices. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why that is so concerning in just a minute. But this is what they look like. Other ways that marijuana looks like in 2022. And I really show this because, again, to talk about leaf marijuana, that when you all were growing up, or when our parents' generation, our own generation, leaf marijuana had between 5 and 10% THC on average. The leaf marijuana today that they can get their hands on has between 20 and 40% of THC. So it's not your marijuana from 20 years ago. It's not even your marijuana from 10 years ago. But then when we talk about these different ways that it's being infused into food and extracted into these wax pens, these electronic devices can actually deliver upwards of 95% THC. It is enough to have caused seizures in students, psychotic episodes where they feel that they are hallucinating, having delusions, really looking like more of a psychiatric break than somebody being under the influence of marijuana. So really important to understand that this could look very different. It probably will look very different than you might be used to it looking.
Ms. Donahue, can you mention, do these have any kind of odor or aroma?
So good question. The food, certainly not. So like these gummy bears and stuff like that, certainly not. The food, like cookies and brownies, you really wouldn't be able to tell, especially if somebody ingested it. Maybe if you actually held it up and smelled it. But the pens, they can have, if they're flavored, you may smell a fruity aroma, but very easy for them to say it's perfume or cologne or anything else. It will not smell strongly of your traditional marijuana the way that, like, right away you used to be able to know. A bit harder. It still does let off an aroma, but is definitely masked by some of these flavorings. So that has made it more difficult. Okay, and so what really are the effects of marijuana? Like I had mentioned, decreased IQ just due to the difficulty in learning, the areas of the brain that marijuana really affects, relationship problems, decline in academics or sports. I tell students right off the bat, if you are an athlete, this is a risk you do not want to take. I have seen time and time again students becoming ineligible to play sports because they get caught at school, either under the influence of marijuana or passing a vape pen or with a vape pen on them, and it falls out of their pocket. Any of those reasons, are going to be reasons that they can really face consequences when it comes to both academics and sports. And of course, I talk to them about why it's just important to be healthy as an athlete, and how they should be caring about what they're putting into their body as an athlete. But it usually rings home with them when I'm talking about how quickly it can get taken away from them for such a impulsive decision, and to really think about the risks, and weigh those pros and cons before they make any decisions about marijuana use. Usually an increase in risky behavior, psychiatric problems. That's really what I started to make note of. Again, looking like panic attacks in some students, looking like, or hearing from students that they actually feel they're having a heart attack, increased pulse, increased heart rate, sweating. Again, even seeing things that don't exist or hearing things that don't exist, because the levels of THC are just so high that honestly our bodies cannot handle it. And so this is what some of these high potent marijuana products are doing to our young people. Hijacks the reward system of the brain. Exactly what I spoke about just before. Will actually trick the brain into thinking this is good for me. So even though it's not good, it releases dopamine, and dopamine is just about the best feeling in the world. And it really, it gives a shock to the brain of dopamine that is larger and greater than, telling a student to go do another activity, go paint a picture, or, oh, go take a nice bike ride. Those are all great things to suggest, but we have to be very realistic when we're talking to youth. It will not do the same thing as what marijuana is doing. And so we want to talk to them again before those kind of shocks of dopamine lead them to an addiction, because it is a very, very strong shock of dopamine, and the developing brain simply cannot handle it, and it very quickly thinks that it needs it to survive. Okay, and so this is just kind of to wrap up, and then I definitely want to take any questions from you guys. But I always hear parents ask, how do I actually talk to my kids about this, right? So as the student assistance counselor, I'm in the building, I'm doing presentations, I'm, offering this safe, private space for them to come and speak to me. But as a parent, how do you, have these often difficult conversations with them? And what I would say is just that preventing early onset of use is key. The earlier you talk to your kids, the better. There's no, putting it in their head and you're going to actually, convince them to experiment, or you're going to put something in their head that's not already there. Trust me, because when I'm not at Sleepy Hollow, I'm at a different middle school. Seventh graders are already doing this, already thinking about it and experimenting with it. So conversations need to be had early. If you wait too long, it's not really prevention at that point, and it's really now reacting to a problem that's already there. So trying to have those conversations early. Of course, some parents are in the position where those conversations were not had early, and now what do? I would say open communication, trying to talk with your students when they're not in trouble for it. Maybe not the moment that you find the weed pen on, under their bed. Of course, you can, have your own reaction to that, and always parent the way that you find, suits best. But trying to maybe revisit that conversation when it's not so hot and when you're not both being defensive, and just saying, can you talk to me about this? Like, can you almost educate me about this? What are you seeing? What are teenagers doing? What's going on at school? Are you seeing it in the community? Just more of an open kind of dialogue about it, where they might not put that wall right up because they think that they're in trouble. Having consistent messages. I cannot tell you how much your own beliefs about alcohol and drug use influence your students and your children. They tell me time and time again that they listen to what you do, that they watch what you do, and so you do have to be careful. And of course, you are of age to do whatever you would like to do, but know that your children are watching from an early age. And so, what is your own attitude and belief towards alcohol and drug use? Be consistent with no use messages, that if they use it, there will be consequences, and these will be the consequences. That you do not accept alcohol or drug use as teenagers at all. The more consistent you can be with those messages, the more serious they take you, and the more they report that they stay away from it. Because my parents aren't into it, because my parents don't accept it, they would be very disappointed in me. Those messages really matter. Be aware of relaxed attitudes. Be aware of, if you maybe have the tendency to say or believe, maybe if you drink in my house under my roof. I really warn parents to just be careful with that one, because what we really know is that if they're drinking under your roof, they're still going to go drink under all the other roofs as well. That usually just makes you feel better as the parent, but not really, influencing them to make any better decisions, or to say at a party, oh no, my parents said only at their house when they're around, so that I'm being safe. So just be aware of some of the messages. Stay connected, know your child's friends, note some changes in your child. If the grades start to drop, if they are becoming withdrawn, if they are fighting with friends, more often, just be aware of those changes and talk to them about it. Just let them know that you are noticing some changes, and that you're just concerned, that you love them and you're just concerned. If you find that they are using, consequences may not be the best or only option. So having those consequences in place, but then again, is there room for some conversation? Is there room for some growth? And then of course, reach out with any questions or concerns. So please feel free to call me, whether it's about your, child, whether it's a question about a family member, whether it's your own curiosity. I am your resource as well as the student assistance counselor. I'm in the building on Tuesdays Thursdays and Fridays. And I can even write in the chat, or maybe Miss Brand, if you could maybe just type in the chat my email address as gdonahue@tufsd.org. Please feel free to reach out with any questions you may have regarding the presentation I just gave, but also any questions that you may have, from here on out. So I look forward to speaking with some of you guys, and thank you for attending. And of course, if there are any questions now, please feel free to either unmute yourself or to write in the chat box. And I'm happy to spend a couple minutes on some questions.
Yeah, I just posted the email address. So if anybody would like that, the email address is up. And I'll monitor the chat, or I don't know if people can unmute themselves. If you can't, you can definitely type in the chat and I'd be happy to read out your questions.
And I can actually stop sharing my screen so I can join everybody again. Okay. Any questions, any themes that you guys see, any trends or anything that pops up?
Somebody asked, you said to start talking to our kids about this early.
Yes. So really, what we know about prevention is the earlier the better. And so again, I would keep those conversations more general, more just, are you seeing any of this, or even that you attended a presentation where vaping was just the topic, and you're wondering what they know about it. Is it something they're seeing? Have their peers started to talk to them about it, or ever, offer it to them? More general conversations about it.
They asked, how early do you think is appropriate?
So again, when I'm not at Sleepy Hollow, I'm at a high school that's, 7th and 8th graders. My program, the student assistance program, is really for 7th through 12th. We don't start earlier than that, just with the prevention in the schools. I would say for sure middle school age is appropriate. They're going to be seeing it either in the community, friends at school will be talking about it. And so I really just think that it's always a good thing to come from home, to just at least acknowledge that you know a little bit about it and you are really open to talking with them about it.
And I know that, just experiences from my own daughter. She's a freshman. When she was in 6th grade, she came home and told us about the number of kids vaping in the bathroom during a school dance in her own grade. So I would say, definitely in 6th grade, the kids are aware of it and many have started using.
Absolutely.
She said, thank you.
You're very welcome.
How do the kids access most of the edible THC-based products?
So good question. So I had made a note to say this. Currently, even with marijuana becoming legalized, currently there's really nothing around legally selling these products as of yet. So I still tell students, no matter what, right now, that all of these products are illegal, and they will continue to be illegal for our students, right? Anybody under 21, it will still be illegal for them to purchase these, but a lot of this is happening online. It's actually referred to as the black market. You sign on to these different websites, exoticcarts.com, all different websites. You click, yes, I am 21, and you have access to ordering anything that you really want if you have a credit card or a gift card. So often I will hear students talk about gift cards, general like Visa gift cards. I would maybe avoid giving those as gifts, as helpful as we think we're being sometimes for like birthdays or holidays. If they're general gift cards with just a money amount on them, they can really feel free to use them on the internet to buy whatever the internet will allow them to buy. And so that always just stuck out to me as interesting. And I always now say to parents, just be careful with the general gift cards. Also, that we know they're being illegally sold out of some of these vape stores that are only supposed to be selling nicotine as of right now. They have not been given the green light to sell marijuana products, but we know that some are. And then students, like with alcohol, even though they're not 21, they know exactly who to get it, who to buy from. They just figure it out, unfortunately.
Well, it doesn't look like there are any other questions, Ms. Donahue. Thank you so much for your presentation, and we want to thank all of the parents who came and watched. It's great that you did so, and we encourage you. We will post this recording on the website, so if you have any friends or neighbors, or if you missed part of the presentation yourself, please let them know that it will be on the website and that it is worthy of watching, because I know that even I, who deal with it pretty often, learned several things today, so I'm sure there are things for parents to learn as well.
Thank you, everyone.